Good day and good morning, friends of Straight Talk program, wherever you might be in whichever part of the world. I would like once again to welcome you to this program, which from reports and from likes that we've been noticing has been gaining widespread attention and attraction. Today, our talk will focus on the question of coming together. You know, for quite some time, reading the daily newspapers, listening to lectures, and all kinds of programs, whether it's on the television, the radio, or even on social media, people tend to talk about the political parties coming together for the good of the country. This idea comes from various sources, from various individuals, from people from all walks of life. And if we to give them the benefit of the doubt, it would appear as though they have the country at heart. In other words, for them, the interest of the country comes first. And that is why many people would talk about the political parties need to come together for the good of the country. But it is the coming together that poses the problem, because it is in this respect that two factors peculiar to Guyana tend to intervene. One factor is the politics, especially the politics as expressed by the two major political parties. And second is the ethnic dilemma or the ethnic peculiarity that exists in our country. So the whole idea of coming together is not really a bad idea. But the question is, apart from those two factors which I just mentioned, is coming together for what purpose? Is there a common program? Is there a common manifesto? Is there a common charter to which all political parties and non-governmental organizations are committed? I want to let you know that for quite some time now, years ago, many attempts have been made to bring unity in our country. Ever since the split in the People's Progressive Party in 1955, efforts have been made for the political parties to work together. And by that I mean the two major political parties, after the split took place and the PNC emerged from the PPP, led by Forbes Burnham, Cheddi Jagan, the father of Guyana's independence, made several efforts at unity of the social and political forces and even the trade unions in Guyana. In the 1960s, just prior to our country's independence, Dr. Jagan held talks with Mr. Burnham in order to bring about a semblance of unity between the two political parties in order to take the country to independence on a joint platform. This, however, was not successful, precisely because the British at that time and the Americans at that time were working very close with Mr. Burnham and had made certain commitments and promises to him. Thus the disturbances and the difficult political situation that emerged in the country just before independence, which was used as an excuse to prevent Jagan from becoming the first Prime Minister in an independent Guyana. In the 1970s, efforts were again made by Dr. Jagan to unite the social and political forces in Guyana. But before I go forward, I should point out that in the 1960s, just before independence, there was a coalition between the PNC and the United Force that came together in a coalition government in the post-independence period. That was followed in the 1970s, as I pointed out, by the call for a National Patriotic Front and a National Front government by Dr. Jagan, which would have brought together the political and social forces in Guyana in order to address the whole question of democracy and free and fair elections. However, those efforts were not successful because of disunity among the political parties at the time. In the 1980s, talks, what could be described as inter-party talks, took place between the PPP and the PNC. Those talks were, to some extent, successful because Mr. Burnham made a number of concessions to Dr. Jagan's PPP. Among them were representation on boards, including the Elections Commission, as it was called at the time. I was appointed a member, representative of the People's Progressive Party on the Elections Commission. Those talks were not successful after some time because it was the period when the PPP was extending critical support to the Burnham government, which at that time was taking certain progressive positions. And those progressive positions were manifested in the nationalization of the commanding heights of the economy, as well as at the international level. Critical support was precisely what it meant: giving support to those progressive measures by the government, but criticizing those that were reactionary and were considered backward steps. During the course of those talks, the Burnham administration spent huge sums of money in beefing up the military and importing huge amounts of weapons. The PPP felt that that was anti-democratic and that was going to be used against the political parties outside that was in the government. And so an editorial was published in the Mirror newspaper stating, "Money for guns, not for bread." Mr. Burnham objected to the editorial and demanded that the editorial be withdrawn. The party did not agree and explained what critical support was all about. And it was on that basis that the talks broke down. Subsequent to that, before the passing of Mr. Burnham, talks also took place. I was one of the representatives of the PPP participating in those talks. The talks were aimed at bringing about some unity between the two political parties in order to take Guyana forward. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Mr. Burnham died, and Mr. Hoyt took his place. Soon after taking his place, Mr. Hoyt jettisoned those talks. Later on in the 1990s, just before the elections in 1992, Dr. Jagan and the PPP began the search again for unity. That form of unity took the place of the PPP Civic. That is to say, of embracing a number of civic individuals who were not members of the PPP. They were not card-bearing members of the PPP, but they were sympathetic to what the PPP was struggling for: national democracy, free and fair elections, progressive foreign policies. And it was on that basis that the Civic was formed. That is to say, an alliance between the PPP and the Civic component. And it was on the basis of that alliance that the party went to the polls in '92 at the PPP Civic. The PPP Civic won the elections from 1992 and ruled until 2015 May. So that the question that I want to come back to is that this whole question of unity has been around for quite some time. And it has taken different shapes and different forms, different expressions. Some call it shared governance. Some call it inclusiveness. We refer to issues such as national unity, racial and working class unity, ethnic unity. These are soundbites that you can hear from any politician in Guyana, and also from the common man and woman on the streets, who would refer to it from time to time. In other words, it has been around, and it is still around in the psyche and the political psyche of lots of people. Now today we have in Guyana what you would call unity or bipartisanship among the two parties in the parliament on certain issues. There's unity on the question of the territorial integrity and the national sovereignty of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. In other words, unity on border issues. And this sort of unity goes back many, many years. The People's Progressive Party has always maintained that it does not support any intervention that would upset or intrude Guyana's territorial integrity and, by extension, its national sovereignty. There has also been unity on security issues. Some years ago, under the presidency of Bar Jagdeo, a national conference, a national consultation was held. At that time, the opposition leader was Mr. Robert Corbyn. And many of the stakeholders gathered at the then office of the president to discuss this whole question of a common fight against crime. Out of that discussion arose several understandings and agreements. The fundamental one was that a body would be established in the National Assembly to deal with security issues. It took a long time for that body to actually be activated. And even now, with Mr. Granger in office and his APNU AFC, they have been rather carefree in calling meetings of this Security Committee of the Parliament. And today, many are asking, why shouldn't there be such a committee or such a unity among the political parties on the question of oil and gas? Because this has now surfaced and become a major talking point in our national discourse in Guyana. The problem, however, in discussing unity issues, that is to say political unity issues, is that at this point in time, when the no confidence motion continues to be destroyed by the ruling APNU AFC, when the house-to-house registration is now an illegal activity being conducted by GCOM contrary to the decision of the Caribbean Court of Justice. And when so many matters are in court today, in other words, the court has now become a major battleground for almost every issue in our country. So that the question that many are asking, unity, yes, but at what price? And unity, yes, but why now? At a time when the country is gearing up for elections. This does not mean to say that the matter has completely disappeared. In the heart of the election season, we still hear references to unity talks. We still hear references to shared governance, to inclusivity, national unity, and so forth. But the question is it a matter that is counterproductive at this time? Some have said that it's a waste of time to talk about these issues. Some have said that why talk about those issues when we're facing elections and all the political parties feel that they will win? Whether an outright majority or a simple majority or whatever the case might be. Then we also have the question about whether unity at this point in time is a divisive issue or is it a uniting issue. That one is what I could describe as mainly an academic type of discussion. But it doesn't mean to say that such a discussion could be useless and would not help in one way or the other. Now we have elections facing us sooner rather than later. And the question that many are asking is what will happen on the morning after. Many are worried not only about rigged elections, many are worried not only about the democratic framework in which the elections will be held. Some are even going as far as to think about what will happen on the morning after, depending on who wins and who loses. Guyanese tend to be very politically sensitive to these issues. And it's only natural that they worry and express concerns on these matters precisely because of the experiences of the past. Is this unity question an elusive dream? Should it be pursued, and by whom? And to what end? These are the questions that are still lingering in the minds of many people. And even though the two political parties are gearing up, that is to say the APNU-AFC and the PPPC, and there are others who are gearing up to contest the elections, I am sure that in contesting the elections, they will also make reference to issues that can unite the Guyanese people based on their respective manifestos and based on pronouncements they have been making from time to time. The unity issue will remain with Guyana for quite some time. It will always be a preoccupation for many Guyanese. But we have to confront the political issues and the ethnic dilemma. These are two twin issues that need to be also be part of the discussion. We will continue this discussion on another time, on another occasion. But in the meantime, I've left these thoughts for you to ponder on, whether you're at home in Guyana or abroad. We cannot only think about the immediate problems. Those are important, but we also have to think about the future of our country, the future of the children of this country, the future of the senior citizens, of the workers, the farmers in Guyana, because they have made their contribution and they have a stake in our country's future. Thank you for listening, and until next time, let us return to straight talk on the discussions of importance to each and every Guyanese. Goodbye.